Hello, I'm Kara Hart with Checkoff Chats, a content partnership with the United Soybean Board on Brownfield. Joining me today, I've got Steve Reinhard, the United Soybean Board Chair from Ohio. We're going to be talking about Farmers for Soil Health. Steve, how does the Farmers for Soil Health initiative work?
Basically, if you would happen to go to the Farmers for Soil Health website, there's a way for you to get signed up with your farm and the conservation practices that you use. And with that program, there's technical assistance that goes into it as well. And one of the goals is to use more cover crops, although that's not our only goal. But when you enter those practices, those conservation practices in that website, you may have the opportunity to gain some additional income per acre based on the practices that you use if you wish to participate in the program and sell those practices.
Sounds like a very sustainable program.
It is, and it's really it's a locally driven program. So it's a climate smart grant that the United Soybean Board, along with the National Corn Growers Association and National Pork Board, have put together, and it's really kind of a grassroots type program that relies on a lot of state assistance. So we have 20 different states and technical advisors within those states to help with these conservation practices, answer questions, place for people to go to share their best practices that they've used, and also to share some of the failures they've had. I mean, when you put a new practice in on the farm, sometimes they don't always go well, and we're looking at a year this year where it's been a little bit on the wet side, and as we start to use a little bit more no-till and cover crops, those are additional management practices now that we have to incorporate into our plan so that we can keep everything moving, as efficiently as possible, and make sure that we get the crop planted in a timely fashion and again in the right conditions.
How many farmers enrolled last year for the Farmers for Soil Health program?
I think we had about 280 farmers enroll in the program last year, and I think that represented about 70 to 80,000 acres. And for the initial year, I think we were pretty happy with that enrollment. Enrollment is open now for the 2024 season, and so if anybody would like to, again, go and check that website out, it's just, it walks you right through the steps.
Who leads Farmers for Soil Health?
Farmers for Soil Health is actually led by farmers. So again, it's a program put together by the United Soybean Board and the National Pork Board and National Corn Growers Association, and it's really driven by farmers to help farmers capture the investments that they've made in making their soil healthier and using those conservation practices to make sure that we're growing our soybeans, corn, and livestock in a sustainable way.
How will the Farmers for Soil Health help the environment as well as farmers?
Sure. So I think one of the things that we look at is, are we using cover crops? So cover crops bring in a different set of advantages for different places around the country and help us build, for example, soil tilth, organic matter in the soil. The other things that they help do is possibly loosen or help make sure that the soil is a little bit looser for compaction that may occur in the prior growing season. One of the other things I think that it helps us do is manage our nutrients a little bit better, so that if we tend to go out there and make a nutrient application, the roots from that growing plant can help hold those nutrients into the root zone so they're better utilized by our crops. Again, when we have the decaying material from a cover crop, that provides organic matter back into the soil. Using variable rate fertilizer applications also helps, so we can go out and map our fields and be able to put the nutrients where we need them rather than just broadcasting them across the entire field.
Steve, do you use some of these sustainable practices on your farm? And if so, tell me about your experience with some of this work.
Sure. So one of the ways that we've been able to manage our costs in this environment of maybe a lower price commodity with still having a higher priced inputs is through our management zones, we have our soil, or our fields are mapped out on a 1 acre grid, so we're pulling a soil sample every acre, and then we're going back and applying the fertilizers based on that sample. So we're actually, again, putting the fertilizer where we need it rather than just making that blanket application across that entire field, which has really helped not only build our fertility levels across that growing region, but also minimize that input because we're putting it where we need it, not everywhere. One of the other things we do is using grass waterways and filter strips, again, to help the water move off of that field, but keeping the soil itself in place, using cover crops and no-till, again, to help hold that soil in place. We don't do, for example, on our soybean field in the fall, we'll take that soil sample every 3 to 4 years, and then we apply the fertilizer in the spring, so we're not running the risk of losing that fertilizer over the winter months with the snow melt and the rains that could occur. And then we do no tillage in the fall on those soybean acres as well.
Is there anything else we should know about Farmers for Soil Health?
Well, I think one of the nice things that it offers a way for farmers to participate in some additional revenue, back to the farm for the conservation practices that they're using. But I think one of the biggest things that I like is I can go in and get in contact with somebody who's used these practices, find out what some of their pitfalls are on the different types of cover crops that we use. So, for example, we've used some crimson clover in the late summer, early fall, and then help to build a little bit of a nitrogen base for our corn crop the next year. So trying to get that timing and when that needs to be put on the field, because it almost needs to be flown on while your beans still have leaves on them. So it's almost got to be a drone application or an aerial application. So timing that right so we get some growth before the winter weather comes. And then even could be timing of termination of those cover crops and what method is the best. Some people like to roll their cover crops or crimp them. In our area, I think that really an application of a herbicide is one way that we will go out and control that cover crop. And again, it's a way that we can actually put on our first set of residuals at the same time, so that we're actually doing 2 operations in one pass.
Where can people go to find more information?
You can go to the website. There's a lot of information you can browse through before you ever have to get started on a program.
Steve, thanks for joining us. Thank you all for joining us today. Once again, I'm Kara Hart with Checkoff Chats, a content partnership with the United Soybean Board on Brownfield.